Hey guys, Jill here. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. Now, we get asked a lot of questions around here on who we sell to, what a harvest day looks like, why we choose restaurants over farmers markets, and literally anything in between that you can think of, honestly. So today, I've just been thinking, man, this would make really good content, just showing you guys, encouraging you guys how to take a backyard garden and turn it into a profitable farm. Some mistakes that we've learned along the way, things I've learned not to do, and some things that I'll do better. So I hope that this video is honestly just super beneficial for you guys. Y'all know I am a yes man. I am a dive head first kind of gal. I like to just get my feet dirty and go all in. But in this particular topic, I have learned that you can't always be that way. You really need to do your research. And like I said, I'm one of those people, I invest everything I have into something. And I've definitely invested my entire life into this farm. And I love that. But if I could go back and give myself one piece of advice, it would be do your research. And if I'd done that first, the garden that you see now may not actually be what the garden would look like. And the reason that I say that is this backyard garden will always stay here. We have spent a lot of time investing into this space, making it welcoming, making it aesthetic to the eye, things that bring me joy and make me happy. However, if I would have put all my time and resources that I did into this backyard garden into this space back here to do a market farm, I can guarantee you I would have made a lot more money off of that than I've been making off of this. So let's get into it. All right, so the first thing that I think is really important that we should talk about is figuring out your consumer. Now, you guys know we are a small scale farm. We are farming on just a little over an acre, and honestly, we probably only farm about half an acre right now. And we chose to go the restaurant route. And honestly, we didn't really seek out restaurants. It just kind of happened this way. We have got really close connections with some friends of ours who own Rabbit Ridge, and they have a restaurant on their farm. So they were one of our first farm accounts. They really kind of helped us get our feet wet, and were very understanding as far as just letting us figure out this farming thing. And they were along for the ride with this, which is really sweet. You do not get that in all accounts, and through that, they have been one of our major accounts that have stuck with us since the beginning. We also sell to another restaurant about an hour from here. We have a very committed CrossFit club that buys from us regularly during our growing season. And I also sell to 2 different farm stands. I'm fortunate enough to live in a community where a lot of us farmers rally together. So we buy collectively and sell collectively to farmers who sell at their farm. So that's really nice. And the reason that I say figure out your market and the consumer that you want to sell to is because it will determine the type of product that you need to provide them with. Now, for instance, a chef is going to be looking for a certain thing. They are much more particular, and not that they're not good to work with. I totally love the restaurants that we work with. However, with a chef, you need to provide them with your top quality, best product that your farm produces, because they want to provide their customers with the top quality product that their restaurant produces. So I'm going to give you guys an example of a squash and zucchini, and these are all things that, trust me, I have learned the hard way. I have taken produce to a chef and they tell me, no thank you, I don't like what you're offering. Now that is a very hard pill to swallow. It left me scratching my head. It mainly left me wanting to research more, which is why I encourage you guys, don't be a yes man in this situation. If this is something you're wanting to do your research, figure out your market, figure out what that market is looking for. That way when you present your product to them, or your produce, or whatever it is that your farm is selling, you know for a fact you're going to knock it out of the park and they're going to be a return customer. All right, so I have this zucchini here, which is really way too big. I mean, let's just be honest. We got a couple days of rain. I obviously missed this one when I was harvesting. So this is not something I'm going to want to present to a chef, because they're probably going to think it's too big, which means they think it doesn't taste right and all these other things. So this is going to be one of those things where it pays me as a benefit for my family to be able to eat from the produce that I grow. Is that the big ones like this, I make zucchini bread, I cook it up for my family that night. It's not going to waste. It's not a big deal. But I do know that my chefs aren't going to take this, so this is one that I'm just going to keep in the house for myself. Now this is like the perfect size. I'll do a little side by side. perfect size, maybe even a little smaller if I'm being honest, which is crazy to me. I know this is a really good size squash that you're looking for. Of course, that is going to determine on the variety of squash that you are growing, and same with the zucchini. But for a restaurant in my area, now be mindful, the information I'm giving you is based off of my area. This may totally vary and be different in your area. So it's really important just to do your research on this and figure out what's gonna work best for you. But I would much rather pick a squash and zucchini on the smaller side and a chef take it than the bigger side and they turn me away. And those are just things that I have learned. Now, tomatoes are super, super important. So most of you guys may know this. For those of you who don't, let me just give you a little example. So if I'm going to pick a tomato on a Thursday to deliver to a restaurant on Friday that they are going to sell to their customers in their restaurant on Saturday, I don't want to pick that tomato when it is at its peak and its ripest, because honestly, it's probably going to get damaged in transit and it will probably end up having some cracks in it, splitting, rotting, turning to mush. Like, those are not things I want to do. So when you have got a tomato on the vine, once it gets as big as it's going to get, it's not getting any bigger. So it's staying attached to the actual vine isn't going to do anything for that tomato. Thankfully, a tomato is a fruit that it can ripen off the vine. So when a tomato starts showing the first signs of blushness and being ripe, I harvest them, because I want to give this tomato enough time to get to the consumer for them to be able to have enough time to do with it what they need to do with it, and I don't have to worry about my product not being a good product. I don't have to worry about it splitting. Also, you don't have to worry about the birds and the insects and the pests that could damage it. Once you start seeing that it is turning blush and is starting to ripen, if you're wanting to sell this, I would go ahead and pick it. Make sure you don't stack it. That's a huge deal. A lot of times I see people stacking their tomatoes up and it kind of makes my heart cringe. I'm like, no, you're just asking your tomato to split. You do not want to do that. And not because I'm saying that you're doing it wrong, because I have learned from experience. I remember just 2 seasons ago, I would come outside when my tomatoes were the juiciest and the ripest that they were, and I would harvest them to take and sell. Now, I also found that if I didn't sell those tomatoes on that day, they were starting to split. We had all these sorts of fruit fly situations going on. They were turning to mush, and I ended up having a lot of food waste, a lot of things our family had to consume, our chickens had to consume, and that's not something that's going to work on a profitable farm. So the same goes for a lot of different products that you may be growing on your farm. Cucumbers are one of those things. They store pretty well. I was harvesting beans, for instance, the other day to take to the farm stand for my friend to sell. I was harvesting them on a Thursday for her to sell on a Saturday. So I knew by the time I harvested this bean, I needed to package it appropriately, store it appropriately, to where 2 days later it was still going to be fresh for her. But not only that, knowing that when her customers bought on Saturday, they probably weren't actually going to use these beans until Monday, maybe even Tuesday. So I think it just makes a huge difference trying to eyeball, okay, I need to harvest and store my produce the best way that I can to consume the life of it the longest. So what I did with these is I packaged them up in half-pound packages. I also went inside and put water in the bags, just a little bit of water in the bags, and I immediately stuck them in the cooler. When they got to her house, she immediately stuck them in the cooler. So I'm confident that by the time her customers bought them, they're still going to have several days for those beans to stay fresh and good by the time that they eat them. This is definitely a learning curve. These are just things that I encourage you to figure out beforehand, because I want a chef, I want another farmer to say, hey, Jill at Whispering Willow Farm provided me with the best tomatoes. I didn't have any splitting, any cracking. Why don't you look for her? Now, most restaurants do not only buy their produce from one farm. They buy from several other farms. So if this is something that a restaurant is the route you're wanting to go, ask other farmers. You'd be surprised. It's not a competition. We're all in this together for the end goal of changing our food system, offering local community good organic food that is affordable, right? So I really encourage you guys, don't be intimidated to ask other farmers, hey, who do you sell to? Does your shelf be looking for other things? So I've got a friend who sells slicers to a restaurant that I sell cherries to. It's not a competition. We just know that he's got large slashers that he sells to them, and he doesn't grow cherry tomatoes, so I do. Why not? I sell them the cherry tomatoes, right? It's not a competition. We're all really in this together. So I just want you to be encouraged by that and don't view it as a competition. Talk to your other local farmers. You'll link arms together. Just like my friend Kim, the fact that she buys from so many local farmers and sells at her farm stand, our community has rallied behind that so much. She sells out within a few hours every single Saturday. And I think a big part of that is the community really just appreciates how much she locks arms with other farmers. So talk to your other farmers, figure out who they're selling to if they're needing another farmer to buy from. Now, of course, with farming, there is always that exception. So with my tomatoes, I'm going to harvest, like I said, at the first sign of ripeness. With my squash and zucchini, I'm always going to harvest on the smaller side instead of the larger side. And with my beans, all these different things. But when it comes to the tromboncino squash, this thing, I can't even get it all in my camera how big this thing is. So tromboncino squash is meant to be a storage crop. And what I mean by that is this one behind me is ready to harvest. Once I harvest that, I can store it. Honestly, last season I harvested a tromboncino squash in August and I didn't eat it until the winter. So it is meant to be a storage crop. So I know when these are ripe, I can wait until they are fully mature and harvest them, and I'm going to be able to pull those from my safety blanket and offer to chefs or any other type of consumer week after week. Those are things to be mindful of too. Same with carrots. You harvest all your carrots at one time. Obviously you may be doing succession plantings and things like that, but those root vegetables, you're going to pop them in a cooler and they are literally going to stay in there and stay fresh for a long time. So I encourage you to look into crops like that too, because beets and carrots, I can harvest a huge yield of them at one time, pop them in the cooler, and pull from them week after week to sell to my consumers, which is something that is super ideal for me and is super ideal for them. So let's talk to the dreamers real quick. You guys, if y'all been following my channel for any period of time, y'all know I am a dreamer. I dream for the big, crazy things, unapologetically, I will say. But when it comes to turning your backyard garden into a profitable farm, do all the dreaming, but like I said, do all the research. If you are not there yet, read all the books. Go to all the farmers markets. I can tell you, with the farmer market scene, how you present your booth is 100% going to determine how much product you sell. Because essentially at a farmer's market, you guys are all selling the same thing. It's how you're presenting it that is going to determine whether you're successful or not. So I think Ray Tyler is a wonderful example of this. You guys go check out his Instagram. And he even does a podcast. He did a podcast episode with Michael Kirkpatrick from The Thriving Farmer. And just talking about how when he started a farmer's market in his area, they all had the same thing, right? Which is how most farmers markets are. So they all were selling the same thing, and his was just sitting there. His product was not moving whatsoever. He was getting extremely discouraged. So he had to go back home, put his thinking cap on, and really think, okay, what can I do? So he decided, you know what? Instead of just putting a small amount of produce out at a time, I'm going to put all my produce out at a time to make it look like I have got plenty of things to offer the consumer and the customer that comes up. And I'm going to make sure when they come to my booth, they are blown away. So he did that. He made his presentation of his booth mind-blowing. He sells out at the farmer's market within just like a couple hours every single week. It is wild. I also cannot tell you how many pictures of produce I have on my phone. It is a bit wild, if I'm being honest. I am always trying to figure out what the conventional price of produce is going for. That way I can know what I can get for my organic produce. And so I just think it's a good thing. Constantly go to farmer's market if that's the scene you're after. Figure out what they're doing and what you think you could do better and how you could implement things, a bit differently. Talk to other farmers, figure out what worked and what didn't work for them. Like I said, it is not a competition. You would be surprised just how willing they are to invest some time in you, because I can guarantee you someone invested time in them. I also really recommend The Lean Farm. This book has quite honestly kind of changed my views of farming as far as how to be efficient, how to be effective, how to not waste. For me, when I got into farming, I kind of had a really bad problem, like, oh, I have to have that tool, oh, I have to have these seeds, this, that, and the other. And the lean farm really kind of breaks that down and really kind of just strips you of feeling like you need that, and really just urges you and encourages you to have the most lean, efficient farm that you possibly can. I will link his book below. That book honestly changed the way I viewed farming. So you guys know I love growing the fun things, right? The thought of not growing those fun things kind of makes me cringe a little, so I like the idea that we have a backyard garden. We will always continue to have a backyard garden, but I can guarantee you that this space behind us, we're really about to put emphasis on turning the whole back half of our farm into just market style in-ground beds. I can guarantee you that this back here is going to produce a lot more money for my family than my backyard gardens, just because I can plant, let's say, this pea patch back here. I can plant of lettuce one time. I can get 2 cuttings off that lettuce. Do you know how much money I'm going to make off those 2 cuttings? Because arugula, salvinova, lettuce, things like that are a hot commodity. You can sell them literally any time of the year. Name a restaurant that you go to that doesn't have a salad for sale on the menu, right? It's pretty hard. So why not grow something that I can sow one time, get 2 cuttings off of, that's double the profit, versus say beans that I'm only going to be able to harvest once and I'm only going to be able to sell once. So just really kind of shifting and figuring out, maybe let's grow some of the things that aren't fun. Does lettuce just light me up? Not really. I mean, I can look at a bed of lettuce and appreciate, man, that's a good bed of lettuce, but there's something about that just doesn't fill my heart quite like walking through that Tromboncina, arch trellis over there, that I'm just get super giddy and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing that my farm has possibly put out. But it's not. It's fun. I will keep those things because I need those things to spark my creativity, to really make me excited about farming, versus planting the same thing over and over again that sometimes you just think, this really isn't that fun. So I encourage you, that may not look like a huge garden bed. That may be 2 or 3 raised beds. That may be some container gardens. That may be just growing some flowers that are beautiful. You would be surprised the market for cut flowers. It is wild. So even if you're wanting to try to sell to a consumer and you want to have a profitable farm, that does not even just have to look like produce. You 100% can be a flower farmer. I remember whenever I figured that out, my mind was literally blown. I was like, wait a second. A flower farmer? I didn't even know that was a thing. Not only is it a thing, it is a very hot commodity thing that you can do. So that is something that I'm really looking forward to, growing more flowers and just kind of venturing out from just produce. There's so many things that your farm can do. Literally sink all your time and your resources and just to learn, soak up every bit of knowledge that you can about what that is. And that way, whenever you get ready to do it, you do it the right way. I can guarantee you, if I would have spent as much time researching the way I wanted to farm in the long term, on the front end, I would not have the backyard garden that I have. I just encourage you guys, figure out what you want to do, hone in on it, be encouraged, rally around to other farmers, figure out your consumer. Never, never, never. This was the biggest mistake that I ever did, was harvesting my produce before I had a buyer. I learned that the hard way. Whenever you get into where you're selling your produce, make sure you know how much your customer wants and only harvest enough for them, because you don't want it to go to waste. You don't want to be stuck with produce that you can't get rid of. So these are just things. Talk to other people who do it. Volunteer at farms. I know right now it's really hard to do those things, which really kind of stinks, but I can't tell you how many farms that I have volunteered at, and I just told them, I just want to learn. I want to learn how you do this. I want people to learn from my mistakes. I don't want you guys to have to do some of the things that I did. If I can tell you a tip or a trick that can make it easier for you, by all means, that is what I want to do. All right, guys, those are my few tips and tricks. If you're wanting to turn your backyard garden into a profitable farm, these are a few things that you guys can be doing right now to prepare yourself for when that transition comes to your farm. I hope they were helpful in the next few months and weeks as we're transitioning a lot of things on our farm. I hope that it'll just continue to teach you. As always, if y'all have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. We love to hear from you guys, and I cannot thank you guys enough just for hanging out with us, investing in our farm and our family. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon.